First, connect to the migration host using SSH. Log in as root account. Verify that UltraPath is installed. If UltraPath isn't installed, change directory to HCIE software directory under OPT directory. List the directory content. Identify that UltraPath file is available. Perform unzip on the file. Change directory into SLES folder. Type shinstall.sh to perform installation. Press 1 for boot from local installation. Finally, press Y to reboot the server. After the server rebooted, re-log in as root account. Let's identify the Linux version by using the following command. Next, identify the worldwide port name of the server. The command is shown as follows. Copy down the worldwide port name for future reference. Type mount to verify the devices that is connected on the server. Next, access the Disaster Storage Device Manager. Click on Provision menu. Click on Loon icon to create new Loon. Let's call it as Loon Source with 20 GB capacity. Next, click on Loon Group to create a group for Loon Source. Click on Host icon and create Migration Host. Ensure that Linux is the operating system. Select the Linux Migration Host Initiator according to the worldwide port name that you found earlier. Click on the host group and create migration group. Finally, click Mapping View and add the Loon group and host group that have been created earlier. Return to Linux Migration Host. Check on the existing disks on the Linux server using fdisk command. Using ultrapath command to discover the newly added Loon. Rerun the fdisk command to identify the newly added disk. Verify that a new disk is discovered and does not have valid partition table. Check the Loon ID by using the following command. Next, identify all the disk devices found on the Linux server. Make a copy of the information that we had retrieved early. This is used to compare after migrating to production storage. Now use fdisk to create a partition for the newly found disk. Press N to create partition. Press P for the new primary partition. Choose 1 as first partition. Press Enter for the first sector. Press Enter again for the last sector. Press W to save the changes. Type fdisk-L to identify the newly create partition. Use the command mkfs.ext3 to format. Create a directory for the newly create partition. Mount the partition to the newly create folder. Type mount to verify mount is successfully. Change directory to the new folder. Create a file using DD tool and create size 10 GB. Once completed, use list to view the content of the folder. Using vEditor to add content to the file. Verify the content of the file. Exit from the current directory. Finally, you mount before replacing to production storage. Verify that we have successfully unmount. Next, verify that the newly create folder does not have any files that we had created earlier. Go to Production Storage Device Manager. Click on Data Protection menu. Click Remote Device icon. Under Remote Device, there might be an existing storage connected, and verify that there is no remote LUN visible. Click on the Provision menu. Click on Port icon. Click on FC ports. Identify the ports which have link-up status. Next, go to Disaster Storage Device Manager. Click on Host icon. Create a new host which will be the production storage. Click on Linux as operating system. On the initiator, identify the worldwide port name of the production storage. Click Data Protection menu. Click on Host icon. Click on Host Group menu. Remove the host from the existing migration host group. Add production storage host into the migration host. Once you have replaced the Linux host to production storage host, switch to Production Storage Device Manager. Click on Data Protection menu. Click on Remote Device. Click on Automatic Scan button. Once scan completed, Remote Loon will appear. Now click on Create eDev Loon. Select the Remote Loon and leave everything as default and click on OK button. Click on Provisioning menu. Click on Loon. eDev Loon will appear on the list. Observe the information on the eDev Loon. Next, create a new Loon group and add eDev Loon into it. Click on Host icon. Create a new host. This host is represent the Linux migration host. Identify the Linux migration host worldwide port name which we have identified earlier. Click on Host Group icon. Create a new host group and add migration host into it. Finally, click on Mapping View icon. Add the Loon group and host group that were created earlier. Switch back to Linux migration host. Run fdisk command to identify the Loon. Perform Loon discovery using hot_add command. Run fdisk command to identify the Loon from storage production as discovered. Next is to mount the device to the folder that we had created earlier. Identify the Loon ID and record the information. Identify the device and record it down. Change directory into the new folder. List the content. The file that we had created earlier now appear. Create a new file using DD tool. This file is 10 GB. The process of file creation will take a while. While the file is creating, switch to Production Storage Device Manager. Click on the Loon menu. Create a new Loon for the target of the Smart Migration. Ensure the Loon is owned by Controller A. This is identical ownership as eDev Loon. Click on Resources Performance Tuning. Click on Smart Migration. Select Manual option and click Next button. Source Loon will be eDev Loon and target will be the newly created Loon. Leave the migration property to default and click on Next button. While the Loon is migrating, the file is still being created. This shows that migration will not interrupt the file creation. Monitor the progress of migration and the file creation. Finally, the file has been created and migration is still ongoing without any interruption. Once migration is complete, click on Provisioning menu. Click on Loon menu. Observe the source Loon and the target Loon property. Click on Provisioning menu again. Click on Resource Performance Tuning. Click on Smart Migration. Select the migration task and delete the task. Return to Provisioning menu. Click on Loon menu. Notice that there is only eDev Loon and the use type is now internal. Verify that the content of the file remain the same.